My question is like, having kids and having in a conventional family and starting up a a tech product, probably that was a passion that was in a very different line, but that when it went to a product and full time business. If I have to talk about the challenges, what were few challenges that you would like to highlight, which probably can a boost to all women out there? Because I've seen people are wondering, even for just a 3 months internship, people who are married think about like, I am married, how would I manage? I am going to
Correct.
college, how would I manage? I am doing this, my parents won't allow, or let's say XYZ reasons. What are those kind of challenges that you faced and you jumped into a full-time things like this?
Nini, I totally agree, Rash. In fact, I think one of the things that I have noticed, and I'm not trying to be discriminating to any gender here, but one thing I've noticed between men and women, after having worked with so many people in my own team, is that with men, if they are at X level, they will say they are at 2x level. They'll claim to be at 2x level. Their confidence is always so high. With women, if they are at X level, they'll probably say, I'm at X by 2 level. I
Correct.
need to reach X level. So even when they're applying for a job, they'll be like, no, I'm not eligible. I can't apply. And men will be like, even 10 times qualification that they have is required. Like, no, of course, I'm super qualified for this job. I'll apply. So I think that is one thing, that is one of the biggest challenges. My own, nature or my own this thing, I would say an imposter syndrome, even after completing computer engineering, MBA in finance, even after working with some best companies out there. You always keep questioning yourself. Am I good enough for this? Am I doing the right thing? And then that whole guilt trap, right? I'm a mother.
Hmm.
If I'll start something of my own, it will suck the energy out of me. Am I doing right by my kids? When they'll grow up, will they feel their mother was not, fair to them,
Hmm.
devoted all her time away from them, etc., etc. So I think more than any external challenges, I think these internal, the self-talk that we have with ourselves, that is our biggest enemy. So coming to my journey, Avinash, my journey also started with a few people like you who were not confident, and you were very brave to face those challenges on your own, but these people needed some support. So my background, I'm from Jaipur, Rajasthan, from a very conventional family. Luckily got married to a progressive guy who encouraged me to to do something with my professional life, and we together started a boutique investment bank in 2013, from where we used to help startups raise funds. So 2013 to 16, I was associated with Dexter. My job was to meet interesting founders, understand what they were doing, and connecting them with the right investors. During this period, I had to move back to my hometown for a few months because my second pregnancy was a little complicated. And during that time, I met a few women from my network, my friends and family network, for whom you can imagine I was an aberration. I was an exception, that even a female from a background where I come, a female can build something professionally for herself and work alongside her husband, whatever. So they reached out seeking help, and their main point was that we also want to do something professionally, but we don't feel confident because we can't even speak in English confidently. So that was the root cause. Like, it obviously it got uncovered layer by layer, but their biggest regret was that, and the biggest fear was that, how will I even go up to an job interview, bhul jao, I can't even talk to somebody who calls my husband, and I have to take my husband's call, and he says, where's your husband, where is Deepak, and I'm like, I get frozen.
Hmm.
I can't respond back because this guy is speaking in fluent English.
Hmm.
So that was their, challenge at that point of time. And as usual, I tried to first solve the problem with existing solutions. So
Okay.
I had a full-time job, and I also couldn't devote too much time to that. So I directed them to the existing websites, apps. But when they checked them out and came back, so offline coaching for them was a big no, because they were in a place like Jaipur where it's a taboo to move out and attend classes. What will my in-laws say? What will my parents say? How will I manage my family, my kids? I can't move out and study. So I said, okay, online. But those online solutions also were not solving the problem for them. Consistent feedback from 4 or 5 of them were that the way these people are teaching will take me 12 years to learn English. I don't have 12 years. I'm not in school. I want something which can address my problems immediately and give me the confidence to speak, step out and speak. Like, I want instant gratification in some way. So then I said, okay, let's try doing it among ourselves. So I started teaching them through paper pen notes, and I used to give them notes and say, okay, so before I started teaching them, I tried to understand what are your pain points, what will give you happiness, what will give you confidence that you are improving in English. And they then narrated their use cases. For example, one I talked about, somebody calls, I get frozen. I go to a store, the salesman speaking fluent English, I get frozen. Right? So those were a few use cases that we tried to address first, because their thing was that if I can speak to a salesman in a mall and tell him that I want a white shirt for my husband and no, I'm not happy with this variety, if I can have that kind of a conversation, I'll feel very confident. So I was like, okay, let's work towards that small little goal. So that's how we started breaking the entire problem into smaller challenges, and we addressed them by creating role-playing sequences. I think we used to just write them down, our dialogues. Salesman will say this, you will say that, salesman, and I used to role play with them. And then I used to give them those paper notes and say, you revise, you come back, we'll do a role play tomorrow, you'll feel more confident, you'll be able to speak without the paper notes, right? And of course, while I'm doing that, I'm also teaching them technicalities of why you're using do here, not does, but not like a separate chapter on do or does. While we are coming across something like that, I'm teaching the concepts also there. So those paper notes were helpful, and they were feeling overjoyed, because next day when they used to come, they used to talk fluently, and they're like, next time I'm going to shopping, I'm going to use these dialogues. But the pronunciation was still missing, because when they were revising on their own, they didn't have that help. So I started recording my voice, and I also did something experimental. I created animated videos around it. So there are 2 characters, a salesman and a woman. They're talking about shopping. There are dialogues which I'm speaking first in English, then I'm explaining them in Hindi. So I tried a couple of such videos, and they found very helpful. But sharing those videos over email was again a little bit of a hassle, because large files and so on. So I started posting them on a Facebook page. And just for fun, I called that Facebook page Multibhashi. Now, case in point, at that point of time, I had no intention of starting a business or a startup or anything. I was doing it to help a few women in my community, and they were liking the way I was teaching in an interactive way, in a goal-oriented way. So I started posting that content so that they could consume without downloading, uploading, and etc. And their friends could also share, because every time I used to talk to them, they were like, I'm feeling so happy, I'll tell my sister about it, I'll tell my friend about it. But then, how would you share? So the Facebook page surprisingly became quite successful. A lot of people I didn't know, like there were hundreds of thousands of people coming on the Facebook page and liking the content and commenting on it and chatting with the Facebook page and asking, "Meri ye problem hai, can you give me videos on that?" So I was like overwhelmed, because I still had 2 very young kids with me. I had a full day job. I couldn't keep creating a lot of, creating content was still okay, because I was doing it once the kids were asleep. But chatting with people all day wasn't possible with a day job. So I also built a chatbot on the Facebook page. Anybody coming in, if their use cases are generic, then they would get resolved. Only the ones who cannot be resolved by the chatbot used to come to me. So that's how the journey was. I was really enjoying it, and there was no pressure of it was something I was doing for fun and for helping others. Before I knew, I had created more than 100 animated videos with different contexts, and these contexts were just coming from the audience that was consuming it. And then something happened which changed my perspective about what I was doing. So there was this person from Bangladesh who came to the Facebook page and said, all your videos are Hindi to English, and they're really interesting, but my mother doesn't understand Hindi and I want her to learn English from Bengali. Do you have these videos in Bengali as well? And just when I said, yeah, we have videos, I'll post in a week or so. We have a few Bengali videos. Why not? And I hired an intern online who was a Bengali native. We converted a few videos into Bengali to English and we posted them, and they also did really well. So I think that one incident, uh, till that time also I was like happy go lucky. It's okay. I have my day job. I have my kids. I'll do it at night. But at that point of time, I think I decided that I discussed with my husband, and he also agreed that it's not a small market. It's not just a problem or a pain point of women in my network or my friends and family. It's a problem faced by a lot of people, like you rightly pointed out, right? For us who can speak fluently in English, it might be nothing.
Correct.
That skill might not mean much, but for somebody who doesn't have that skill, for them their entire confidence depends on it. So then I formally quit Dexter and started working on this idea full time. And we released within 6 to 8 months. I put together a small tech team, and we released the first version of our product, which was an Android app, in December 2016. The response was amazing. By April 2017, we had registered the company. By September 2017, we had raised our first round. We had 1 lakh plus registered users on the app, and the feedback was excellent. So that's how the journey began. I've never looked back. It was never just a business for me. It was my way of giving back to the society. And I love every minute of what I'm doing at Multibhashi. Gradually, we kept obviously adding more features to the product, adding more languages to the mix. Today, after 5 years, we have come to a place where we teach 35 languages on Multibhashi, 15 foreign languages, 20 Indian languages. We have thousands of live trainers in India and abroad as well. We have 2 million registered users. We have thousands of paying customers who are learning through live classes as well as self-learning content. We've raised 2 rounds of funds from investors in India and Japan. And we've built a fabulous team, some of whom have been with us right from the beginning. So yeah, extremely, extremely lucky, feel grateful for the journey, learned a lot along the way. It was mind-blowing.
Interesting. So I was expecting this kind of flow itself because when I read the post and when I understood the kind of thing a founder would have to share with me, I was very excited to understand because right now, as I said, the problem which you are solving is not, I think, is not a problem which probably would come. I think there's a lot time to solve this problem when it would come by birth. You are confident enough to talk in English, Hindi, or let's say any language. Because if I can tell you, I'm 26, and last 2 years, like if I have to count myself, last 2 years, I wasn't able to interact with anybody. Hindi was somewhat I could manage, but English was a big task. Like now we are talking it is essential, or probably it is not making a difference to us. But yes, that was a really big challenge. But then my question is, like, interesting part of this conversation would go ahead when you had this, like every day you used to help your colleagues, I would say, your friend circle. From doing this to getting a high and getting, enjoying this process to a point where you figure out that, okay, this is the point where I need to start something on a product basis. How that transition took place and what are the criteria that actually you went through? Because let's say I'm doing a service, and I also started something just to help people, and eventually it turned out in a month company because I thought build a company. So I built a company. Eventually 2 years I'm doing a service. Probably I might scale up to a product or whatever. So that transition, how that transition took place, how much time it took to, because people, this is related to founders or let's say startup enthusiasts who are working in a new idea. Especially I've seen they want something to be very, it is not a social media post that you will post, you will boost and that will go viral. This process takes time. So how's your point on that, and how much time it took to build a product from just doing, I would say, helping gesture? How much time it took?
So see, in terms of timelines, Avinash, I launched my Facebook page in Feb 2016. But my content creation had been going on, like these small tiny videos I had been making since, I think, as early as July 2015, Feb 2015. So almost a year of making videos. Then finally deciding to put them up on Facebook. From Feb 2016 to July, then the realization happened, I think, quicker. And the basis for that realization was primarily, I would say, user feedback.
Use feedback.
Because, for example, in your case as well, right? You started helping people, but when you got positive feedback, it reinforced your confidence.
Correct.
You said, okay, I'm helping people out of my sheer will, but they are getting value out of it, right? And in your case, you could see that they are also willing to pay for it. So
Correct.
this can become into something of economic significance. I think those things, and then third consideration also, because I come a little bit from the investing background, I understand that that is also not enough. Like you're doing something and people are liking it is also not enough. Is this a large enough market? Was also and I think that incident with the Bangladeshi guy coming in and Indian people requesting more languages. Like there were people who were saying, why don't you teach English from Tamil? Why only Hindi? So I think that itself gave, even English itself is a big enough market. I'm talking about Multibhashi, meaning any language you can.
Any language.
At that point, I realized that even English. So I think a couple of factors. One is the market size itself. Second is differentiation, which a lot of people say. And I think one way to capture your differentiation is market में ऐसा नहीं products तब नहीं थे, right? English learning products have always been around. But if you're getting enormous response and people are liking it, then there is some differentiation you're creating to their lives. In our case, probably that differentiation was the fact that we were teaching English through mother tongue. We were teaching English in a goal-oriented fashion rather than an academic fashion. So all these small little points contributed to the fact that people were reacting so positively to the videos, to the content that I was creating. So I think these two, plus third is my own passion. Even if I'm doing something to help people and they're liking it, but if I don't like doing it or it doesn't, so my passion I measured probably by the fact that I was working in a full day job in the day. I had two very young kids. Aditi was 2.5, Aditya was just born. And still I could find the energy to be awake at night and make those videos. Like nobody was paying me to do that. There was no stick, there was no carrot. It was sheer will, it was sheer passion. So I think these three factors for me were reason enough to take a full dive. And to others also, maybe who will watch these videos, etc., I'd say you should take a calculated risk, but at the same time, some part of you should also be ready to, just jump. Because if you think too much, I mean, you keep.
That's how we landed up in the conversation, because I used to think a lot, but I thought, okay, fine. There is only one way to overcome the fear is to learn. And
Correct.
what are the process? What is the process to learn? Like I said, I will face people who have done something, and probably that is something a kind of learning probably I can get. And by my side, people who are watching that video or probably a content would also be, help, that will be also helpful for them.
Absolutely.
So now
Absolutely.
there is a case, like I also had few people with my teammate who are married. My question is like having kids and having in a conventional family and starting up a tech product, probably that was a passion, that was in a very different line, but that when it went to a product and full-time business. If I have to talk about the challenges, what were few challenges that you would like to highlight, which probably can a boost to all women out there? Because I've seen people are wondering, even for just a 3 months internship, people who are married think about like, I am married, how would I manage? I am going to college, how would I manage? I am doing this, my parents won't allow, or let's say XYZ reasons. What are those kind of challenges that you faced and you jumped into a full-time things like this?
Nini, I totally agree, Nash. In fact, I think one of the things that I have noticed, and I'm not trying to be discriminating to any gender here, but one thing I've noticed between men and women, after having worked with so many people in my own team, is that with men, if they are at X level, they will say they are at 2x level. They'll claim to be at 2x level. Their confidence is always so high. With women, if they are at X level, they'll probably say, I'm at X by 2 level. I
Correct.
need to reach X level. So even when they're applying for a job, they'll be like, no, I'm not eligible. I can't apply. And men will be like, even 10 times qualification that they have is required. Like, no, of course, I'm super qualified for this job. I'll apply. So I think that is one thing, that is one of the biggest challenges. My own, nature or my own this thing, I would say an imposter syndrome, even after completing computer engineering, MBA in finance, even after working with some best companies out there. You always keep questioning yourself. Am I good enough for this? Am I doing the right thing? And then that whole guilt trap, right? I'm a mother. If I'll start something of my own, it will suck the energy out of me. Am I doing right by my kids? When they'll grow up, will they feel their mother was not, fair to them, devoted all her time away from them, etc., etc. So I think more than any external challenges, I think these internal, the self-talk that we have with ourselves, that is our biggest enemy. And to solve this, to overcome this challenge, I think my biggest support system was my husband. He always had a logical argument and a very good explanation for why you should do this and why you shouldn't worry about it. And then secondly, my kids. So when I started, they were too young to give me any inputs. But as they grew up and, I started reflecting with them that, do you want your mama to be a housewife? Is it okay if your mama is working? And I always, and even today, I have always got one voice, especially from my daughter. I'm proud of what you're doing. I'm really, and I would not want you to sit at home and do nothing for me. I'm okay if you devote less time to me, but I'm really proud of what you're doing. And then that gives me a sense of, purpose, that maybe even if I'm not able to spend as much time with my kids, probably I'm giving them that role model, which I never had, right? That was also one of my biggest problems. Growing up, I never knew any women in my circle who were able to manage professional and personal life really well. I had always seen women being housewives. So I think that mental framework also got changed when I got married to Devendra. And he kept pushing me to, not think about all these challenges and just focus on what I really want to do and what I can achieve. In terms of family, I think family has only supported us. Obviously, for them it was difficult because like me, they had also never seen, right, women working. So for my parents-in-law still had, because my elder sister-in-law is a doctor and both of husband and wife are running a hospital together. So they had some background into it. Probably my sister-in-law primed them for this, but my parents had no background seeing women working as well as taking care of family. So initially there was some resistance, and they used to always wonder, why are you doing this? Why are you making, your husband is earning well, why are you making your life hell? Why don't you put time to kids? Why are you working? Forget about starting a startup. That was the
Correct.
their minds were blown away that she wants to do something of her own. Even a regular job or even helping Devendra with Dexter was something of like, why? So I think changing that mindset took time, but small little successes that, and today they're very proud of what I'm achieving. Yesterday my father called and he was congratulating. I saw the post, you're among the 100 women. It feels surreal. If, if I go back in time and I tell my 5-year, I tell Anuradha in 2016 that one day your father will call you and congratulate you for being among the 100. She wouldn't believe, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, you have to take that first step. You have to believe in yourself. But having a support system does help. So in my case, my husband has always been my rock. You can find that one person who always keeps you motivated. Nothing like it.
I have a question. It is not my question, but there is a specific question which probably these kind of women can ask and probably would be wondering, what is this? If they have certain situations like this, people from their family are not supportive enough, let's say, because that is also uncertain way to think on that part, because everybody has a perspective, not supportive enough. They are probably wanting or willing to do a startup, a business, or let's say some कहीं पे तो job करने के लिए भी बहुत issues हैं. Correct.
Absolutely.
So one thing which you would like to suggest them or address them, ki, this is the reason you should ask yourself, or probably you should find a purpose, and how you should find a purpose and go ahead. Otherwise, because some of them are very clear that they have to do it and they will do it, even there is a resistance. But some of them are not able to survive because resistance is too intense. What is the one way for them to identify this kind of situation and go ahead with, or probably leave there? What is the one input?
So, Avinash, one thing is, and I'm saying this out of experience of having worked with thousands of women at Multibhashi. 99% of our workforce is educated housewives whose families were not supportive of them going out and working. So, I've been blessed to have worked alongside many such women. And one thing that I always tell them is to be very honest with themselves.
Correct.
Like, as a person, forget about man, woman, right? First, you need to be very, very clear in your head how important it is for you to pursue the thing for which you're fighting. Because fighting with others is easy, fighting with your own people is not that easy.
Correct.
So, and I'm not saying that you should just comply to whatever your family is saying, they might be wrong. So, it does make sense to go through that struggle. But you need to keep constantly maybe journaling your thoughts, maybe reflecting on your own, but you need to be very clear why you want to do it and at what cost, right? So it's all about the cost benefit analysis there, the trade off there. And also you need to be a little patient with people. Ultimately, the people that you're talking about, your family members, etc., they are attached to you, which is the reason why you care about what they think or not hurting their feelings, right? It is not that if you do not grab this opportunity today, it will pass. So don't have that kind of impatience. Try to prime your folks towards what you're trying to achieve and try to involve them into it and make a small start. So, for example, a lot of women at Multibhashi who are, contributing to the company by teaching or creating content, etc., they started by, just working for 2 hours a day. They said, this is the only time when everybody in the family sleeps. My kids are in school. My husband is not home. So nobody would know. It is okay, right? Make that small start. And they did that. When the money came into their bank accounts directly, and then they gave a party to their kids and said, Chalo, today I'll take you to a samosa party, right? Or we'll have some deal. And that's how they revealed it to their families, made it a small surprise. And then she proved it that, okay, I can manage it without hampering my day-to-day activities or my responsibilities. So I think that kind of patience is required because you're trying to climb the peak of the mountain, but take those baby steps towards it. Don't think about Arya Par. Like, either I will be a housewife or I will just forget about my family. I'll fight with them and I'll get into a 12-hour job. So that kind of transition, what happens is we are too emotional. We don't even realize that how attached we are to our family. And when we do something so sudden and so drastic and then we see our loved ones being hurt, then our energy to continue on our mission also gets hampered.
Correct.
So that is my one advice to women. Don't give up on your dreams, but at the same time maintain that balance.
I think this is the point to make, like validate by small steps and or probably ask the question, what is the cost of, for this, I can do this. Let me just come back to a point जहाँ पे हम थोड़ा यंग लोगों की बात कर लेते हैं जो अभी कॉलेज में स्कूल में, because this is also needed for them as well. Somewhat they also need kind of support, even boys, girls, if they want to do something. Nowadays it is a 60%, I think, a support. Okay, do this. But eventually 40% of them are still conventional, not more than 40%, I would say. उनके लिए क्या mindset होना चाहिए कि okay, you do not have family, or let's say you have your own life still to figure out what is best for you. What is one thing they should ask themselves to jump into these kind of scenarios? Let's say अब हम startup की बात कर रहे हैं, business की बात कर रहे हैं, या फिर एक ऐसा project जो उनके लिए बहुत ज्यादा dream हो या ambition हो. So what is that one point they should think of, or probably can discuss on the pointers to themselves to start?
So I'll give you a very good example. I went to my alma mater, my college from where I did MBA, and I asked this question: how many of you want to start up? And there were a couple of guys and girls, right? And I asked one of them to tell me why you want to start up, and his answer was, because I want to be my own boss. I was like, don't want to, dampen your enthusiasm, but that is not the right reason why you should start up. Your reason has to be right. So first ask yourself, why do you want to start a startup? Is it because you want to be a celebrity startup founder? Is it because you want to make a lot of money? Is it because you want to be your own boss? These are good to have bonuses of starting a startup, but this cannot be your core reason. Core reason has to be that you are very, very attached to a problem and you want to solve it. That is the best reason when you want to. And second thing is, one is why you want to start up, and then just quickly. And the second thing is, have low expectations when you start up. Right? Like I just said, it's a mountain peak that you have to reach, but you'll have to take baby steps. If you keep thinking that I started my startup, but I'm not getting crores of revenue like I expected, thousands of users, millions of users like I expected, that guy, see, don't compare. Don't expect, don't benchmark yourself to death. Whatever little you achieve, feel proud of that, feel complacent about it. Not complacent in the sense that you stop working hard, but in the sense that whatever you've achieved, be grateful for that and appreciate it. Then only you can move forward, and that gives you the energy. Celebrate small successes.
Correct.
So I think these two things, if the young people can give, and third thing is, no matter what, you are going to be a winner in this situation. Even if that idea doesn't work, that startup doesn't work, you will walk away with a lot of learning and confidence.
Correct.
And in today's world, I think a lot of people appreciate that you have started on your own and you have that kind of experience. So a lot of job employers also value that kind of experience.
Correct.
So you're not losing it all.
Thing is, I mean, young people always have, I would say one एक कीमती चीज होती है उनके पास, that is time, because eventually that is a very important thing, and they could bet on this, probably having a patience, and I think, as I said, expectation, having low expectation is something. मुझे लगता है शुरुआत जब जो कर रहा है, they should be expecting learnings from the experiences rather than results. So that's how it can, shape them, and eventually, once you are skilled, probably you will figure out whatever it is going to come. By the way, next question is related to product. Now, Multibhashi is a product which is helping a lot of people. Now, let's talk about this. What are the challenges from the day one, which when you wanted to build the product? Let's say you approached to a people tech guy, you made it, and up to a year, what was the process? How we went, how this process was? Because it will help them who really are in a stage कि उनको पता चल गया, this is my idea, and they have validated, they have found the product market fit, and now probably नहीं, वहां तक नहीं, but they have created some of the version of product. But now first year of a product or tech product like this educational product, what was the challenges, if I have to frame out in that way, and how it went from day one to year? What was that journey of a product?
So Avinash, in my case, I think I had some advantages in terms of the fact that I myself had a background in tech, and I also had a good network of founders, because in my earlier role at Dexter, I was advising founders on starting on raising funds. So I think these two combinations helped me. Third thing was, I think personally, I had a lot of clarity on what I was trying to build, and because I had seen so many founders' journeys, I was very clear that I'm only targeting an MVP right now. So I would say my journey was comparatively much smoother compared to what I've seen for founders. So a couple of things that I can, list out to avoid when you're planning to build your tech product is, number one, don't fall into the trap that tech is my product. Tech is only an enabler. Your product is what is making difference to the lives of the people who are facing a problem that you're trying to solve. So your solution is, and also don't fall into the trap that my first version has to be perfect. Don't build a Taj Mahal, right? The first version, the purpose of that first version is to solve the problem, not fully, but solve the problem to an extent, to gather as much user feedback as you can, then build upon your first prototype or first MVP. That's how you will take your journey, because initially you don't have the kind of resources to build a Taj Mahal, right? So don't
Correct.
go for that. Do focus on that one thing that your users really liked about. And even before you build your tech product, like you said, you need to have some sense of the differentiation you have. If it is
Correct.
possible to do things in non-tech way initially and gather insight into what is it that is unique about you and people are liking it, do that and then build a tech product first version, then improve upon it thereafter. The third thing is, network is important. Like, you don't want to fall into the trap where somebody takes a lot of money from you and
Correct.
builds nothing for you.
Correct.
So you need to know the right people. And I would say cold approaches are a good way of trying to achieve that. Like, you approached me and said, I want to host you on a
Correct.
podcast, right?
Right.
Approach people on LinkedIn who have done something like this before and ask them for references. I'm trying to do this. Do you know someone who would be good? And always go with ref checks. Because in this industry, there are a lot of people who have burned their fingers trying to build a tech product and lost money. So I think that would be my third point. And fourth is, like, we've talked about clarity on what you're building, not trying to build a Taj Mahal in the beginning, and having the right set of people to build it for you. Fourth is setting the right parameters for yourself to evaluate how you have done. If you have that in place, then the problem that we talked about, expectations you won't get too disheartened. Because, if you're expecting that I'll raise my first round as soon as I release my first, product, and that doesn't happen, then so be realistic about what you're planning, about the targets that you set for yourself. And I think either you need to yourself have some background in tech, or you need to have a co-founder who is solid with this. It helps. It makes your journey smoother. Not that people haven't achieved it without either of them, but it's just all the more easier to be able to do that.
So if I have to ask you, let's say talking about 1 year journey, like by end of the 1 year, what are the changes that probably you have made to your product? If I have to ask you technically, and probably शायद कुछ notifications हैं या कुछ चीजें which we are trying to improve. So after a year, was our product like Multibhashi was generating revenue because it had already, I would say consumer base in other forms, but now it is a product. So people was always before this also people knew about this is gonna be a technical platform now, app or something like that. So by end of the year, there was a business in a startup. That's the first question. And what are the changes that actually we figure out? Like, because eventually ये भी जरूरी होता है while building a product and after a period of time, how we figure out कि यहाँ पे changes करना चाहिए, like in feature wise, in technicality wise, how we figure out that. So what were the changes that we made?
So Multibhashi from day one has been completely user feedback driven, Avinash. Whatever features, I had no idea what should go into the product.
Correct.
I was completely surrendered to my user base. We built the first version of the product on the basis of the feedback we received on the Facebook page.
Oh.
Right? What content should go? What should be the user journey inside the content? Everything, each and everything was decided by the feedback that I was getting on my Facebook page, right?
Okay.
Users were telling me, they were the ones who were more intelligent than me. And
correct.
They said, the videos are good, but, we don't get any notification or reminder to learn again. So it's not a good journey. Okay, we'll add that. And we should have quizzes after every video so that we can test how much we want. Okay, we'll add that. But users will ask for stars and moons and sky, but we don't have resources to do that.
Correct.
So then we go by what is the most frequent ask. And logically, does it make the maximum difference to the problem being solved? In our case, are the learning outcomes going to improve if I add this feature or not?
Correct.
So from day one, if you see, our MVP was like, if I have to look back on that version of the app, it's very, very embarrassing. It was nothing but a combination of just videos and quizzes.
Correct.
Gradually, when we launched that product, Play Store has a very good option to see your reviews, right? If you go back into 2017 reviews, you will see what people are talking about. And we picked those reviews up. We still have customer calls. When somebody gives us feedback, we call them and try to understand exactly what their pain point is, how we can solve for that. So I think everything is built. This is just one basis for how we built Multibhashi right from the beginning. In terms of business model, there was no business model from 2017 to 2020. We were not making any money. It was a completely free product. We were aiming for improving the product to a point where people would start being ready to pay for it. And that happened in 2020.
Correct.
So when we added more what was required by the users in terms of content, in terms of method of teaching, in terms of curriculum, everything, we started seeing monetization as well. From 2020 to 22, we have made good money on the product. We've seen good monetization as well. But everything happened very, I would say, organically. We didn't force anything. We just kept an eye out. We just kept our ears open and we kept listening to the feedback the users were giving us. Also, your capacity to add more features or to improve your tech product depends a lot on the resources that you have.
Correct.
We were able to sustain for 3 years without making any revenue because we were investor backed. So a lot of founders will have to realign their plan according to those outcomes also. It's not in your hand. You keep trying, but when will the fundraise happen? You don't know. So you have to have your plan A and plan B. If fundraise happens, I'll go this way. If it doesn't happen, I'll go this way. So all those factors also contribute, I think, a lot.
The next question on fund part, because this is one of the most critical part when somebody is having a product nowadays of business. Like we are talking about 2016, 2017 या 2018. Abhi now 2022 is way better than that time in order to get funds on startups. Considering not current situation, but like if I have to talk about 2021, it was a way easier if you have good connections and sensible product in the market which is solving, and a startup. 2016, how that market was, because I wasn't aware about anything that time. What is market, what is product, what is funding, how that was difficult, because you come from a background जहाँ पे आपने already investors से deal करा है, founders से करा है, capital deal करा है. So how you think, for you, probably I am assuming that वो एक plus point रहा होगा. But now my question is, how probably people who are looking out and are at the stage जहाँ पे they have made a good product, but now they are seeking for funds. What are the steps they should follow, or probably they should consider while approaching an investor? What that would be in current scenario?
So, in terms of, first of all, I beg to differ, Avinash. 2016 say now, it's better. It's better and it's worse in a different ways.
Okay.
Back in 2016-17, the number of investors you had in India was way lesser than the number of funds and investors you have today, probably.
Okay.
But on the lob side, on the downside, if you see, I think the awareness, or those investors have also become more seasoned, also because they've seen investing cycles. And it was a newer concept, I agree. 2012-15 is when the startup wave started. Today, we have a lot more people starting up than we had back in the day, right?
Correct.
So it goes both ways, right? Now the supply is huge. You have a lot of startups and you have to choose between them. So the investors have also become very picky, right? And they not just, I remember there was a phase when people were raising money on a paper idea. I have this idea, I have this outlined it, I'm from IIT, give me funding. There was a time, how ridiculous it might sound right now, but people were doing that back in the day. It's no more possible anymore. You're from IIT, IIM, Harvard, Stanford, I don't care. I need to see product market fit. I need to see initial traction. I need to see a visibility of business model and monetization. That's how rigorous it has become now. It's not even a joke. So thinking that now is a better time. I mean, for a passionate founder, every time is a good time to raise funds. Okay, so not about that, but you need to be realistic when you're going out in the market to raise funds, and you need to be open to feedback, I would say. And you need to be fearless, and you need to have cold reach outs to investors, angels, whatever makes sense for your stage of the journey. But you need to reach out to people and talk about, if you get time from them and if they're ready to listen to your idea and if they're giving you feedback, you should feel grateful for that.
Okay.
Because that is how you grow as a founder. That is how you reach a point where you become fundable,
Okay.
right? So you have to go through hundreds of pitching sessions. At times you second pitching session you crack and you raise funds. I mean, not so, but be prepared to go through hundreds of pitching sessions, discussing your idea, laying yourself bare in front of another investor, and receiving feedback which may be harsh, which may be gentle, but trying to make sense of that feedback and incorporating it if it makes sense to you. If not, just reject and move forward. But don't have any hard feelings about being rejected, because rejection is something each entrepreneur has to be very positive about. Not just from investors. You go hire a team, people have said things to me in the beginning.
Correct.
Never forget. You are trying to hire me at a daily wage rate. How do you expect me to? And I was like, okay, no problem. It's not for you. Maybe we're not the right fit. Let's move on. So potential hires will reject you. Potential users will reject you. Potential investors will reject you. You have to develop a thick, hard skin and say it is okay. And learn from every rejection every time. So in terms of funding also, see, like I said, right, expectations. Somewhere, I think this whole hype about seeing people getting funded every day, if you open the newspaper and he got funded, so many $1 million, this, that. Kids, when they even start, they're working on their idea, they're like, I'm working on that, three months I'll raise funds. You know? But what is the investor expecting before giving? And ask this question to every investor you meet at the end of the meeting. Even if they reject you, ask them, sir, what would be the stage where I will become attractive to you from a funding perspective? There will be investors who will say, this space itself is not interesting to me. So at no stage you'll be attractive. There will be investors who will say, okay, you reach $1 million of revenue, ARR, then you will become interesting to me. It all depends on what industry you are in, what space it is, a lot of factors. But it's a huge hustle, Avinash.
I have an interesting question to ask here. Probably, just let's try to be honest here. You said, you have to go through 100 decks, pitches. So my question goes in, like, does it matter? Let's say business model is not that good, in a case, but the pitch is definitely good. Probably that person has good ability to show up that business. Does it matter any which way having a good business model attracts investors, or probably having a good way of presenting your business in order to attract the funds? What is the mindset of that?
There is no one size fits all method here, Avinash, because there are all kinds of investors. They have their own ways of evaluating. I mean, we can talk about the majority. We can say majority of the investors would want a solid business model. But there are people who don't even care about business models. Even today, there are investors who would say, it's okay, I don't care about the business model. We'll figure out the monetization together. But today I see an attractive traction. So let me take a bet on that. So that happens. But I don't think there are any cases where there is no fundamental merit in an idea or a business, and investors are only impressed by your oratory skills and your communication skills and your pitching skills, and they'll give money to you. I think that is a little flimsy to just, even consider. But yes, it's not, you don't even, there are companies who are pre-revenue and still raise funds. There are companies who are post-revenue and still can't raise funds. So there is no one size fits all kind of it depends from investor to investor, industry to industry, specific idea to idea, whether it has merit or not.
Now we are moving on to the third and last part of this conversation. As an individual, if I have to talk about as a founder, if you have to point out few pointers that are a common challenges which eventually people come across, and probably how to deal with them. What are those challenges would be, like you are facing or probably you faced, and how to challenge with them? Because मुझे तो लगता है कि as a founder, as a creator, 1 घंटे में आपको लगेगा you have rocked it, and 1 घंटे बाद you would be like, okay, this is not something which I'm doing absolutely bullshit on that part. So how do you think your journey is on that part?
I mean, you're absolutely right about there are highs, there are very high highs and there are very low lows in an entrepreneurial journey. And you have to learn to navigate both. because you cannot lose your balance when you are on those very high highs, when the whole world is congratulating, you arrived, man, you made it. You need to calm yourself down and say, miles to
Okay.
go before I sleep. And when there are low lows where you're facing rejection from every quarter,
Hmm.
right? But if
Hmm.
you have that conviction in the idea and the project that you're working on, the startup that you're working on, it doesn't matter what the whole world is saying, right? So
Hmm.
I would say it's a balancing act. And you've asked me such a broad question. I can go
Yes.
on and on with a list of challenges a founder faces and how to solve it.
Correct.
There will be times when you will, question your own capabilities. There are times when I feel that Multibhashi as an idea has so much merit, but I, as an entrepreneur, probably hasn't done justice to it. A better
Okay.
entrepreneur would have taken it places by now. So you'll go through that kind of self doubt all the time. And there will be times when you will feel that this is probably the best thing that has happened to you ever in your life,
Hmm.
and you're not sure such an experience you'll have again. In terms of challenges, see, everything is a challenge. And if you don't like challenges, don't go into entrepreneurship, because every single day is a challenge. You're
Hmm.
facing challenges on the front of managing your team, hiring the best, retaining them, motivating them, getting work out of them. You're facing challenges from users who are throwing tantrums for no reasons at all. Whose needs are sometimes so reasonable, and you see that the user makes sense and I need to give him that, but you don't have the resources to do that. You'll face
Correct.
challenges from your investors, who are sometimes very, very friendly, and sometimes they just are after your life. And so I mean, there's no dearth of challenges. And then
Hmm.
the whole point of the struggle, the everyday struggle, the everyday mental trauma of not being able to solve the problem that you're trying to solve, sometimes that gets you. And you're like, I've been working on this problem for the last 5 years, I've still not made a mark, I've still not made a
Hmm.
difference,
Hmm.
there's no
Hmm.
way to go.
Hmm.
Sometimes that becomes overwhelming. But I think that's why I said, Avinash, having a strong support in terms of either family or friends, or a couple of people whom you can rely on,
Hmm.
right, is
Hmm.
extremely important,
Okay.
because it is a difficult journey. And if you have
Hmm.
co-founders along the way, nothing like it. For me, people like me who are solo founders, I think my husband is my rock. My
Hmm.
kids are my inspiration.
Hmm.
So you
Hmm.
need that kind of support system. Otherwise, it's very difficult to navigate this difficult
Correct.
journey.
Correct. I think you made a very good point on that. Like, I can also relate. I used to ask my mom. Even she's not anything aware about what is business, what I'm doing. She just tells me, like, कुछ तो बड़बड़ करता रहता है फोन पे, मुझे पता नहीं, बट इवेंचुअली आई यूज टू गो टू आस्क द क्वेश्चन इन अ वे कि उनको वो चीज समझ में आ जाए, और उसमें जो वो रिप्लाई कर रही है वहां से मैं अपना आंसर ले लूं. सो दैट्स हाउ probably one thing which I learned is I was not making this as an important part consciously, but अभी मुझे समझ आ गया. Having a co-founder is something probably you are actually doing great with these kind of things, but you should have a bunch of people who probably would give you, at least not give you something, but listen to you what you are going through with. I think that's one of the most
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you know, I would say gift for you as a creator, as a founder. The next question, which is very important, which I want to ask you. अभी आप बता सकती हैं, बिकॉज मैं ये समझ रहा हूँ कि पीपल हु आर फाउंडर्स और जो जर्नी के थ्रू जा रहे हैं, एंड दे हैव नॉट मेड रेवेन्यू, प्रॉब्ली दे हैव गुड रेवेन्यू, बट स्टिल दे आर नॉट, जैसे आपने बताया कि दे आर नॉट हैप्पी. इतने सालों में मैं ये कर सकता था, मैं ये कर लेता, यहाँ पे पहुंच जाता. आप, what is your most challenging scenario or moment during your entire journey, if you would like to give an idea about it? It should be an
Sure.
instinct, probably a story, could be a story as well.
No, so Avi, I think a lot of times you would have heard it, but a startup goes through uh, a lot of deaths in its lifetime.
Correct,
Like, it's on
correct.
the verge of dying.
Correct.
Multibhashi is no different from that. And we've had moments where we thought we've lost our baby, right?
Hmm.
I think those are the moments which have been most difficult for me to deal with.
Hmm.
By God's grace, we've always come back and stronger from those moments.
Hmm.
But I think those are my darkest moments,
Hmm.
where no amount of support helps. You have to just have your faith.
Hmm.
But somehow, one way or the other, we have always navigated through them. And which is why I said, for every entrepreneur, it's going to happen. Sometimes it is going to materialize. That fear of you is going to materialize. There are so many startups that get shut down. But I think the fact that you always remember that it is not the end of the world.
Correct.
Even
Correct.
if you will hear so many success stories of so many founders who will tell you that this is not their first startup. They started something which didn't work out, then they started something that again didn't work out, but then they started something which just took off really well.
Correct.
So no idea or no startup, even ending is the end of your journey. Your journey
Correct.
is way longer than that. And the lessons that you have learned during your journey are going to be with you for your entire journey. With this startup journey, so I think it's all about the mindset. But we've definitely had our fair share of dark moments.
Correct.
Where we thought that probably will not be able to come back from it. But I mean, even there have been times when a challenge became an opportunity for us. So, for example, when COVID happened, right? Although we were a completely virtual platform and all, but when COVID happened, there was a lot of disappointment in the market. Everything was disrupted. So everybody was scared about what will happen. For EdTech, it turned out to be really good.
Correct.
Right? So sometimes what we fear also turns out to be a blessing for us. So
that would be one part to understand. Now, you mentioned over here, Abhi, I just wanted to understand, I think at this moment, there might be some startups, some people, working on, let's say on startup, on any journey or any path, they are on a verge of quitting that. अगर वो ऐसा सोच रहे हैं, so what are the pointers they can figure out there that exactly will help them to go ahead or probably leave that? How would you define that point?
So basically, whenever you're making an important decision like that, you need to be first very clear that you're not emotional at that moment. Maybe sleep over it. But you cannot take such a big decision under an emotion which will not last very long. And when you come out of that emotion and you look back and you'll regret it. So whatever you're doing, you need to be 100% sure. You can't be 100% sure that it will be right or wrong decision.
Correct.
But you need to be 100% sure that later on you will not regret it. Right? And the only way to do that is clear your mind and write it down. Why I'm taking this decision, why it seems like the right decision to take, and what are the scenarios in which probably later I'll regret it.
Okay.
So if you have that clarity, Avinash, right? So for example, today somebody has a food business and he or she feels that I've tried my best, but I've run out of resources. I just can't sustain this business anymore. And she writes down why it is a good idea to shut down this business. And what are my alternatives? Is it even a possibility that I can continue with this business? So, on one side of the paper you're writing, I'm shutting down. These are my reasons. On the other side of the paper you're writing, I'm picking up an alternative. Maybe I'll scale down but not shut down. What are the reasons for? What are the arguments in favor of this? And then what will have to change for me in order for me to later regret that I took this decision? And then those factors, just look at the probability of those factors happening. So for example, with this person, let's say he says that I'm shutting down because I don't have money today. And I just have money for the next 3 months, so it doesn't make sense for me to continue. What is the event that will make you regret that decision? So the event could be maybe next month if I decide to shut down today because of lack of cash, and next month somebody approaches me and says I have a large catering order for you, I'm going to regret it.
Correct.
Because I already shut down my business. But what is the probability of that event happening? Has it happened to me in the past? Is there a probability of this happening again? If the probability is high, then probably I need to question the argument based on which I was taking the decision to shut down. So I think it has to be a very logical, written down document before you take an important decision like that. It's okay if you want to finally eventually shut down. But once you've covered all such bases, you've covered all such arguments and the events that might trigger regret, if you have all that in place, then the likelihood of you doing something which you will regret later is going to go down. And ultimately, what are we all doing? Whenever we are making decisions, we are just doing a regret minimization.
Correct.
So if you do that well, I think it will never be a sore point for you later that I did this and I shouldn't have done it. That is more important to
Correct.
focus on.
I think there is one point that I can also contribute here, that मुझे लगता है कि let's say whatever you are building or doing and you are on a position that you want to quit, is my personal thinking is, what if I'm not doing this, let's say for 2 months or 3 months, what I'll be doing? Will I be like, because my personal thing are very emotional to this, क्या मुझे वहीं वापस जाना है जहां से मैं आया हूँ, like from where I escaped to do this all kind of things, and how much I learned this, love this journey. And if I'm putting this, let's say, because monetary things are never gonna be, let's say, if you are doing good revenue also, there will be a monetary conflicts in a business. But then I think this is one point they should think on, like, if you quit here, from where you escape, you will go back there. Would you survive and would you want to go there? That's one thing probably they can understand. If the answer is no, keep going and keep hustling. Because ultimately, if you are on the path, you will figure out some other path where is a light. There is no darkness. I think how logical this concept will sound to you in a way, because my thoughts are a little bit immature in sense to talk about these kind of businesses.
No, not at all like that. But I think, Avinash, in my personal opinion, I understand where you're coming from, but in my personal opinion, that is not the right way to take a decision. Like, for example, if a thing is, if a plant is rotten to the point that it is better to let it go,
Correct.
then you shouldn't hold yourself back from letting it go just because you're scared of what will happen if I get out of it.
Correct.
So if the idea or the startup that you're working on has gone bad beyond repair, or has gone to a stage where if you continue, you're going to cause more harm, right? So, for example, this food business lady, right? If she doesn't shut down, but she continues at a scaled down pace and makes, let's say, X rupees every month, which is way below her potential, right? Then she's just wasting her potential on it.
Correct.
Because she's scared that I might not even get another job of this much salary. It's her inner fear, right? Because of that inner fear, she's not letting go of something which is not making sense anymore. Is not the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, you might feel that because I don't want to go back into the, I don't want to go back into that rut of finding a new job, that whole scary part. So that's why I'll stick to my comfort zone. I don't think that's the right way to live your life.
And what if they already have made a decision to quit? Let's say for those who have already quitted recently, what is the next thing they should think on? अब क्या करें? How they should think on and figure out to either start a new thing or either go to a opportunity probably. How a right
Again,
thing.
it will differ person to person, but I think quitting a startup or quitting your own startup is almost like the death of a loved one, according to me. A lot of people compare it to the death of a child because that was something you created on your own. And it is a very emotional thing. And I think you need to first take time to process that trauma. It is a huge trauma for somebody who's worked with so much passion, so much love on an idea for so long. If you're going to let it go, then I think give yourself an opportunity to first process your emotions and come out of that trauma. Give yourself some me time in that sense, right? But in a positive, with a positive frame of mind.
Okay.
And then you are as fresh as dew, right? I mean, you have all your learnings with you, but at the same time, then you need to look forward. You cannot keep looking backward. Like a lot of people get into that trap of, oh my God, I was such a celebrated entrepreneur. Everyone is looking up to me. What I'll do next. I don't think you need that kind of pressure in your life. You need to again come back to the basics and ask those basic questions which you asked yourself when you started up for the first time. Maybe your life stage has changed. Maybe you worked on a venture for 10 years and now you're quitting. Everything around you has changed. 10 years back, you were a young guy with no responsibilities. Today, probably you are married with 2 kids. who are going to go to college soon, so you need to save up. So maybe your priorities will shift, and you'll need to visualize what you want from the rest of the life that you want to live. Maybe you'll need to go to a high paying corporate job because you have responsibilities and liabilities, and it's okay to do that. I mean, you don't have to come under the pressure that because I'm a founder, I'll always be a founder and again start up. Okay, maybe you'll start up again. But process what is happening right now. What are your priorities? What are your liabilities right now? If you have the convenience of starting up again, and if you again fall in love with the problem and the solution, go ahead, take a leap, as long as you've covered your loved ones, right? But it makes sense to give yourself time and work on something even monotonous for a while, because you need to process. You need to come back stronger from that trauma, and that cannot happen if you just force yourself to do, and you're bound to fail. So yeah, I think, and it also depends from an individual to individual. I've seen founders who are like, big, go home or go big or go home. Like, if this works, great. If it doesn't work, I'll start on another thing. I'll just shut it down and move. I've seen so many people doing that, and they're also successful. It's all about knowing yourself very well. If you're that kind of a person, even in dating, right, you see a lot of people moving on from one to another, like correct. Very emotionally attached, and they take their time through a breakup. It's very similar to that.
Right. Again, that is very relatable. The last question of this conversation would be like, अगर 5 ऐसी चीजें आपको बतानी होगी जो एक फाउंडर है, प्रॉब्ली एक स्टार्टअप कर रहा है, या किसी एक ऐसे प्रोसेस में है जो शायद चैलेंजिंग है, स्टूडेंट है, किसी लेट्स से बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स ये देखेंगे जो IIM CAT की प्रिपरेशन कर रहे हैं, probably they are mature enough to understand this conversation. 5 learnings that you would want to give them, how exactly to crack, what are those would be, because I've seen so far, अभी यहाँ पे सिर्फ प्रोडक्ट और बिजनेस की बात नहीं थी, मुझे लग रहा था we would be talking on products, but I just got enlightened with the way of sense कि आप चीजों को प्रोसेस कैसे कर रहे हैं, and eventually how to enjoy normal way of living, not just by relating your product, let's say business, to your life. So 5 ऐसी चीजें, 5 learning which you would like to address to people who are watching this. Probably they are in a phase कि जहां पर वो इस सिचुएशन में जहां उन्हें चाहिए कुछ चीजें, probably.
I think, Avinash, one thing is they need to learn from you on how to cold outreach.
Okay.
Because that's going to be the way of life if you want to be an entrepreneur. You cannot be shy. You cannot hold yourself back. Reach out to as many people as you can. And build a network of people around you who are like-minded. Their energies rub off on you. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, go reach out to as many entrepreneurs as possible. They don't all need to be funded entrepreneurs. They don't all need to be celebrated entrepreneurs. Even somebody who started and failed would be a good connection, because you will connect with them, you will learn from their journey. So I think networking, cold outreaching, that is lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to be a very, very clear-headed individual. Start the habit of journaling. Write down your thoughts. Bring yourself to clarity. If you're not clear on your goals, if you're not clear on your idea, if you're not clear on the problem you're solving, solutions, so everything. So that needs to be there. The clarity, and not just
is it there? Like clarity will come in a very initial stage? Or probably we are talking because we have figured out.
You have to make it a habit. It's not about when it will come. It's a process and it's a journey. I'm not saying that you will become very clear in the day 1, but you need to develop that habit of being clear-headed in everything in your life. So when that comes in, you start questioning yourself. You start reflecting too much. You start like we just discussed, right? If you're shutting down, are you taking that decision logically with the whole thought-out thing, or you just आज मन नहीं है, आज सोच रहा हूँ, बंद कर देता हूँ.
Okay.
So that's what clarity is all about, right? When you start writing everything down, your decision making improves, your clarity improves over a period of time. That is something you need to start. Even with networking and cold outreaching, Avinash, ऐसा नहीं है वो day 1 पे आ जाएगा. But you need to start working towards it, right?
Correct.
The third thing is what we talked about, having that emotional rock. So you should have a bunch of people whom you can, go to when you're really distressed, because that is for sure. It's going to happen in your entrepreneurial. Fourth is, like we discussed, setting lower expectations, setting realistic expectations, let's say, right? Not trying to, reach the peak of the mountain, but taking baby steps towards it. Right. And fifth is, like we discussed, celebrating small successes. That is also very important. That gives you positive energy to keep going on. These are the only things that I'm able to think of right now. But
No,
there are many skills you will need. Many, many
so
more
I
skills.
think these